So during today's video, I want to talk about one of my favorite projects I haven't really spoken about on this channel, but I've been accumulating it all throughout the bear market and even during this recent downturn. I also want to give you guys a quick update on where I think BTC will be in the next 12 to 18 months. I believe that there's a lot of unnecessary panic, and FUD within the market right now, but we're still in a uptrend in this bull market cycle. My name is Colin. Welcome. For those of you who are new, what I do is I talk about fundamentally solid crypto projects on this channel, and then in terms of the news related to market. So if you like what you hear, please consider giving this video a like and subscribing towards the channel, and I'll continue to bring you more content like this. So before we get started, remember that none of this is investment or financial advice. The crypto market, as you've seen, is extremely volatile. There's ups and downs and a lot of people lose their money. So it's very risky. Make sure you do your own due diligence and research before you get in. Furthermore, not sponsored by any project that I talk about today. I will always disclose a position if I have a position in a project. So with that out of the way, let's get right to it. So the project that I want to talk about today is Solana. Solana is one of my favorite projects. If you've been following my channel, you'll know that I refer back to them from time to time. Full disclosure, I have a pretty decent sized bag in Solana. I've been accumulating it throughout all the entire bear market and then also in the recent downturn as well, because I see them as one of those golden projects that will do extremely well during this cycle. Now, we're going to get into Solana and all of the updates within a minute, but first, let's take a look at the Bitcoin chart and talk about where we're heading. So Bitcoin is trading right at its support line of 60,000 right over here. So notice it's at 60,000 right now. It pierced through that line, right over here. It tested that support line. It also tested it here as well. Just like it's trading in this range of 72 to 60,000, right? It tests that sort of resistance right here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 tests already. And eventually it will break through, but maybe in time and not right now. There's a lot of FUD in the market. If you've been following the market, every single day there's new news. Today it's about the German government, selling their Bitcoins. Tomorrow it'll be something else. There's the war that's going on. This is the same FUD over and over and over again. The long-term trajectory of Bitcoin is up. So in time, whenever we see this, I always tell people, don't forget to zoom out. So if you zoom out right over here and you look back to sort of last October, even last June right over here, from here to here, Bitcoin has really thundered up, right? Like if you take a look back right over here, and I'm just going to go over and I'm going to pick out right over here in terms of price range. Let's say right over here, last November, we're going to pick this right here and we're going to go up, right? We're going to go up towards that line. If you look at that right over here, Bitcoin has gone up almost 4x, almost 400%. For those of people who always say that, we're in a bear market, this is the top, I don't think so. There's a lot of indicators to show that this is not the top. And here are two charts by Max BTC, which I agree with because that's a sentiment I've been talking about on this channel for a long time. So I've shown these charts before, but if you take a look at the two previous halving right over here, at the 2020 halving, it took about 546 days to get to the new all-time high. And in the previous time, right over here in 2016, after the halving, it took 525 days to get to the next all-time high. So in this cycle right over here, if we took the average of these two, we would be 18 months out. So where we would get to the next all-time high would be at September or October of 2025. That's what we would aim for. Now, if you take a look at sort of the pre-all-time high right over here, he calls it the mid-cycle. This nasty chop consolidation always happens before we do that run up. Same thing with sort of the 2016 right over here. We have this nasty mid-cycle consolidation happen before we touch its all-time high, before, Bitcoin goes on a tear and the altcoins go on a rip as well. So although history does not repeat itself, it usually rhymes. If we take a look at the second chart right over here, it explains that behavior really well, what we're experiencing right now. That midway chop, that boring price action, and every time there's a rip down, there's a lot of people who throw in the towel and just quit. So here's BTC on top, here's others, which represents all the other altcoins, others D. You can look it up for yourself. So notice the previous cycle, every time it tests its all-time high, as Bitcoin is getting ready to rip through the all-time high, you notice that the altcoins right here take a huge tumble. Same thing with the previous all-time cycle in the 2017-2018, as Bitcoin is testing from the old all-time high right over here, as it's testing the old all-time high and trying to break through, right? It eventually breaks through and gets to a new all-time high, but during this phase right over here, you see the altcoins do not do well and they are dumping. So now in this cycle right over here in the 2024 to 2025, this is what we're seeing as Bitcoin tests its all-time high. That's what it's doing. It's testing that 72,000 line. And as it does that, all the others, so all the altcoins take a pretty ugly dump before we see that behavior. So I don't think that it's going to be that much different during this cycle. Yes, there's going to be a lot of different things, but I do think that history will rhyme. So in my perspective, I think that we're still gearing up for a major run within this market cycle. So if you've been playing in the altcoin casino with the small to mid caps, you would have missed a lot that's been going on. So I'm very bullish on Solana. I'm going to go over the update on Solana today to see why they're one of the best positioned L1s to do a significant run during this bull market. Now, if you look at the price action right now, it's at $130. It recently ran up over $200, right? 210, and then it slowly slipped back to 130 with this Bitcoin downturn. But I think with all the updates that are going on in Solana, I think they're one of the best positioned L1 to do a massive run. So today, I'm going to break it down where Solana is today, and then sort of the updates during the past year, what makes me so bullish about this project, and then finally a price prediction for Solana going forward. So first thing I want to bring up right now is Solana has passed the 30 to 40 million monthly active wallet addresses. There's a lot of transaction happening on Solana, and if you've been following along, their meme coin season exploded during this past year, but there's a lot of activity as you can see. It's really climbed up from June of last year being below 10 million monthly active wallet address to now peaking over 40 million during the past month May, and in June roughly 30 something million monthly active wallet addresses. And looking at the ecosystem, even though this is an old slide, in 2021, they only had a handful of dApps, so maybe between 40 and 50 dApps, but now the ecosystem has exploded to over 1,500 different applications on Solana. So there's a lot of builders on Solana. And then of course this slide, which has been shown many times, and what makes Solana famous is its high throughput. So 60,000 transaction per second, it's TPS, and then the cost per transaction is only a fraction of a penny. Compared to all the other chain, it's cheap, it's fast. That's why a lot of people are transacting on it. But as you see in today's update with the new Firedancer update to Solana, it's going to take it into the stratosphere. So pay attention and watch out for that update. I'm going to talk a lot about it. So that was just a really quick brief overview of Solana, but I want to talk about the current Solana today and some of the updates that are happening that are very exciting within the ecosystem. So let's first talk about Firedancer because that's been on everybody's mind. Now back in 2023 during the Breakpoint conference, they started to introduce Firedancer is Solana's new validator client. What it's designed to do is the following: to improve the performance and efficiency of the network. It increases the decentralization and security of Solana. And then finally, it increases its scalability in order for the project to scale. So in order to fully understand and appreciate the importance of Firedancer and the new validator client, let's take a step back. So what is a validator? What a validator does is it verifies the transaction on the Solana blockchain. It participates in the consensus mechanism in order to verify these transactions, and it is involved in producing new blocks as well. So you can think of the validator client, what Firedancer is making. It's the software that allows validators to interact with your Solana blockchain. So that's what the Firedancer validator client does. So to explain how Firedancer is really going to scale Solana to new heights, let's take a look at what they talked about during their Breakpoint conference. So if you go back to 2023, I'm just going to go through the highlights of this conference. So besides Ethereum, Solana is the only other layer 1 that has built different validator clients. If you look at Solana's current state right now, all the validators are ran through their original Rust code, okay, that was built by the Solana Foundation. Even Jito, which is running 38% of the validators on Solana right now, is a fork of the original Rust code, okay? So Jito shares many of the components of Solana Foundation's labs of their validators. So why should we introduce new validators? So what Firedancer is trying to achieve is it's trying to increase the validator client's diversity. So the new validator that's being built on Firedancer will be built in a new code, okay? It's in the C++ instead of the Rust language of the original validator. What this does is that it separates the two, because on C++ it's an entirely new different language. It will be not prone to some of the vulnerabilities that the original validator client has. So this way it increases your security. It increases decentralization because now you are introducing a new validator client. And this is exactly what they talked about during that Breakpoint conference, is that they said there's no single points of failure, okay? This is their optimum, right? They want to get here where the Solana labs and, they lump Jito in there as well because it's Rust. This is what Firedancer is doing, right? Building independent teams using different languages, at least 4 fully independent validators with no single implementation that's greater than 33%, so that if one of these networks go down, one of these validator clients go down and there's a bug or something's happening there, it's not affecting the other validator clients. And coming back to this point, right now the current TPS of Solana is around 60,000 with a fraction of the cost. With its early testing, Firedancer, they were able to show over 1 million TPS for the incoming inbound transaction. And we take a look right over here, Austin Federer, who is the head of strategy of Solana, he talks about this. He talks about how compression on Solana solves one of the key pain points faced by institution and mass consumer applications, the cost of on-chain account storage. He goes on to here and says, if you're a business who wants to bring 450 million users on-chain with tokens, that could cost tens of millions of dollars. And he's right, because that's a lot of customer base to reserve that account space. Thanks to the generalized compression on Solana, that cost is now just $25,000. So if we take a look at what other people are saying online about Solana's Firedancer, you can see right over here, Masari Crypto talks about how, Jump Firedancer's first milestone, FD Quit, demonstrated an impressive TPS, so a propagation of about 1 million transactions per second in its initial performance tests. But of course, there's a lot more work to be done in order to achieve Firedancer's full potential. And then there's a lot of buzz that's going around in terms of zero knowledge, so ZK compression on Solana. If you look at Joe McCann's post, and you can go into it later on, check out Light Protocol team and what they've done. But pretty much he talks about its Solana account model, but compressed with a 99.99% reduction in cost, only possible on Solana. So if you take a look right over here in terms of the PDA account, they're able to reduce it by 160 times cheaper. And in terms of token accounts, 100 token accounts, they're able to get it 5,000 times cheaper. So there's a lot of people talking about zero knowledge compression in Solana. And then I think Masari has it right here. They talk about how if Firedancer is successful, what they're going to be able to do is really unlock this blue ocean market for the Solana ecosystem, because they can offer a really high quality product with high throughput and very low costs. So when's Firedancer coming? Well, if you take a look back at this post with Raul Pal, he talks about it right over here. In September of last year, he asked the Solana community, and then he asked Tolly, when is Firedancer going to be live? And if you go down, you could see Tolly's response right here. It says, estimated times are hard. My hope is that the test network by end of year, then it may take about 6 months to stabilize, okay? And then he goes on to thank Tolly right over here. But everybody is excited about Firedancer, even some of the biggest investors within the space. So if we take a look back at this post, end of year plus 6 months, we're looking at June, July. So I'm expecting any time for them to make an announcement around Firedancer, roughly around this time. So even though Firedancer is a really exciting endeavor for the Solana ecosystem, and I think crypto as a whole, in terms of adoption and where we're going, we always have to look at the risk side of it. So Jump Crypto, the makers of Firedancer right over here, the guys building it, you can see that they're actually facing some investigation from the CFTC. And the CFTC is really pro-crypto. So if the CFTC is opening an investigation into these guys, you know that something is probably brewing. And if you go down in terms of this article right over here, if you guys are new to Jump Crypto is responsible for a lot of things within this space, okay? So if you don't know Jump Crypto, they've invested in Sui as well, one of the new layer ones, in Aptos, and then 70 million for OX Protocol and 55 million for Celestia. So these guys are big within the space. I don't want to speculate on anything, but when you look at their investing behavior and activity, I think it's probably something around anti-competition, right? Because notice that they pretty much invested in all the biggest layers, and now they're the ones that are building Firedancer for Solana as well. So should something come up in the SEC, or something comes up and a lawsuit that happens to Jump Crypto and things take a turn for the worse, for me, yes, that is a temporary bad outcome, but at the same time, that will be one of the best times to be able to get into Solana. It's going to be another lifetime opportunity as Solana takes a quick hit. Now, after the whole FTX fiasco, the entire crypto bear market in 2022, nothing phases me about Solana anymore. So I'm going to be watching that very carefully. Know that that is a risk to this Firedancer project, and then of course spilling over onto Solana as well. So some other interesting updates in the Solana ecosystem. If you take a look at this chart right over here, monthly active developers are between 2,500 and 3,000. So there's a lot of activities going on in Solana. And then during the past year's conference, the head of strategy at Solana brought up some very interesting point. If you take a look at the slide right over here, creators on Solana are now earning over $170 million in royalty, $1.2 billion generated in NFT primary sales with an average of roughly 10Ks per creator, and 128,000 total creators on Solana. What this shows you is that it's opening up a new dimension to, artists, musicians, people who did not have this opportunity before in Web 2, where they can actually monetize based on their work. So I thought this was really cool. Now, if you take a look at this slide right here, it's really interesting. It shows that at that time of presentation, you can mint 100 million NFTs at the cost of roughly $1,400 on Solana. Now, this is mind-blowing because everything that we're trying to do, whether it's minting NFTs in games, let's say you minted 100 million items within the game, you could literally mint everything without touching the company's bottom line. Or if you're trying to do real-world assets, things like bonds, things like bringing stock, tokenizing real world assets onto the blockchain, you have to do it with a high throughput and a low cost. So the applications are endless what you can do on Solana. And then in terms of breaking into the payment sector, in terms of Web 2 payments, if you look at Solana, its time to finality is really 400 milliseconds. So if you're trying to do things like Visa, MasterCard, points of payments, Stripe, PayPal, all of those things, customers are not going to be waiting around for you to do a 2-3 second. That's way too long. Most people are going to wait half a second at most. And in terms of Solana's TTF, so time to finality, is only 400 milliseconds. Now, talking about breaking into the payment processing arena, you could see Visa right over here. Last year talked about how they're introducing USDC stablecoin on Solana as an alternative to Ethereum. So that caused a lot of excitement. And then I brought this up before, but PayPal is also working with Solana, launching its own stablecoin on the Solana network. And adding to that growing list of major companies in Web 2 working with Solana, you can see right over here, Stripe is also adding its customer payments in USDC stablecoin on the Solana network. And then finally, right over here, Solana is working with Google Cloud Partner in order to accelerate Web3 adoption. Okay, so Solana is working with some of the top Web2 companies right now that all of us use. There's nobody that doesn't use like Visa, MasterCard, working with Google, Stripe, all of these reputable companies in order to push Solana to a new state. And then also another major breakthrough for Solana is that 3iQ is launching the ETP, which is the equivalent of an ETF in Canada for Solana. So they make their post right over here. You can go along and read all about it, but the Solana is going to be available. The ETF is going to be available in Canada. So you could see that major institutional investors are actually invested in Solana. Why? Because it is presenting an alternative solution where real world assets can be adopted. Something that has a very high throughput, scalable, and then cheap as well. So in my opinion, of all the layer ones in this market cycle, I think Solana has the most promising in terms of adoption, in terms of scalability, and in terms of where they're going. So let's talk about the price right now. So if we take a look here, Solana is trading at $132, right? So in the previous all-time high, it did touch $260. And of course, after that FTX collapse, remember it went all the way down to $7, $8, okay? And then it jumped back. And then in this current cycle, it's ran pretty hard. It's gone up to $230. And with this recent Bitcoin pullback, it's now trading at $130. So right now the market cap is at 61 billion right over here, with a trading volume of 3.4 billion. And then in terms of the circulating supply right now, it has it at 462 million. So keep those numbers in mind in terms of where I think Solana is going. So I'm going to pull up this chart right over here. This is the SOL-D, so Solana dominance chart right over here. You can see right now it's at 2.8%, but I do think that SOL will continue to eat up a little bit bit more market dominance. It's kind of like the Bitcoin dominance, right? This is a SOL dominance on the market. I think it's going to go up to at least 3% to 4%. And that's a realistic number because during this cycle, you could see the SOL dominance right over here was at 3.6% already. So by the end of this cycle, I think SOL will dominate at least 3.5 to 4% in terms of its market share. Now I'm going to pull up this chart right over here, Milk Road. If you guys haven't seen Milk Road Daily yet, they put out great research and I thought this was a pretty cool prediction. By the end of 2025, so they're basically predicting at the end of the bull market, right? 18 months from the April halving would put you into October. So by the end of 2025, they think the total crypto market will go from 2.6 trillion, where we are right now, 2.3, 2.6 trillion, all the way to a $10 trillion market. Notice right over here, they think the Bitcoin dominance will shrink, okay, from 50% to 40%, whereas the layer ones, right, the layer ones are going to grow from about 29% to about 35% dominance by the end of this cycle. And I like how they categorized everything else in terms of stablecoin, DeFi, meme coins, AI, layer twos, in terms of where they think it's finishing. So if you have time, check it out, but keep this number in mind, okay? So 10 trillion by the end of this cycle. Now, of all the layer ones, remember I said Solana is going to dominate between 3.5 to 4%? It may be a lot higher because I can't see all the other horses in the race, even though, you know, I like projects like Phantom, I like AVAX, but just in terms of this cycle, and of course I hold a big bag of ETH, full disclosure. I know all the ETH maxis are upset during this past sort of announcements and the ZK compression and all the stuff that's going on in the SOL ecosystem right now. So I'm chain agnostic, but I do think Solana is going to be one of the clear winners in this cycle. So I think they'll dominate 3.5 to maybe 4% dominance of this $10 trillion right over here. So I'm just going to open up my Excel chart. So right now, as of today, you can see current right over here, they're trading at roughly $130, right? It fluctuates up and down. The market cap is roughly 60 billion. And if it's at a 2.3 trillion market cap and it's only 2.6%, that's the SOL dominance right over here. You can see that's the price that I would get. But in the future, in terms of the dominance, right? If we go up to 3%, just 3% dominance in terms of the future price prediction, you could see that, you know, at a $5 trillion market cap, that's the total crypto market cap, that would be roughly 150 billion, translating to roughly $324. So if the crypto market went and it doubled from 2.6 to 5 trillion and Solana is at 3% dominance, which I believe clearly they're going to get to, that's my price prediction. And then if they get to $10 trillion, what Milk Daily talked about, okay, $10 trillion market with a 3% dominance, which is conservative estimate, because I think they'll be a lot higher by the end of the cycle. And if Firedancer launches, I think that number will be a lot greater. So that would get you to about roughly 300 billion in terms of market cap and a price of $650. I know it sounds insane right now and you may not be able to see it, but I think with the amount of adoption that's going on in the Solana ecosystem, by the end of the cycle, if we really get to $10 trillion, Solana will still blow it out of the ballpark. Now, I know what a lot of people are thinking. They're saying it's too expensive now, I really can't get into it. But just think about all the shit coins that you've been in, you know, the small tiny market caps below 50 million, 30 million, 100 million. Where has that gotten you in terms of your investment versus something like Solana? So I just wanted to bring this up in terms of price prediction. So for me, I think the range is going to be somewhere between here, 3 to 650. Now it can go a lot higher given this market cycle, you know, market psychology in terms of where we are. But for now, I think that's my range and what I'm comfortable with. So those are my big bags. My big positions are in these big layer ones. They're not in the shit coins that are 10, 20, 30 million dollar market cap. I do have a degen bag for those, but these are the big layer ones and the big projects that I think has a lot of promise. Okay guys, that wraps it up for this video. I hope that you enjoyed this video on Solana and the update within the ecosystem. So if you found some value in this video, please consider giving this video a thumbs up and consider subscribing to my channel, and I'll continue to bring you content like this. For those of you who've been following me for a very long time, tell me if you like more content like this, a deeper dive into bigger ecosystems. So with that, I will see you in the next video.